Law and Justice. Reflections for our Christmas holidays. What is a Christian? In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, a dystopia, especially for our times, we have a law without justice and a justice without law. Both poles are barbaric, of course, and both are pitted against each other. So we have a society that mistakes its rules and regulations for justice. To collaborate with those rules and regulations is to be just. However, in private, of course, who knows behind the scene? Somehow, the private is repressed, hidden, and then manifest, brought out in the savage. Hence the appeal that the savage has for the society of collaborationists, of those who are drugged by the rules and regulations, who into believing, on the surface at any rate, that the rules and regulations are the ultimate incarnation of justice. So the society goes to the savage and looks at him as a freak on the surface, but it's attracted to it. It's amused, but this amusement is somewhat of a veil, a mask for an intrigue, something that the society fears, really, although it would not admit it. This fear is repressed by drugs, by its habits of collaboration with rules and regulations, and of course the whole life of compulsion conceals this attraction that we have for that which transcends the law. All right, so the savage here, however, is alienated from the law. Right? The savage is, justice without law. That's barbaric. Right. That is somewhat the modern setup. In a secular society, in a godless society where God is dead, which is to say that there is no political openness to the otherworldly, the political is conceived in strictly mechanistic terms as realpolitik, which is to say in technocratic terms, really. Political problems are technical problems, and so we have the dominion, the empire of the experts. Well, in this world, Dostoevsky tells us that everything goes. What does he mean? In Brothers Karamazov, Dostoevsky suggests that when God is dead, well, everything is allowed. In principle, there is no standard beyond what we're doing. And, well, you might say, well, what about the standard of the law? Well, but the law is used by those who do to confirm, to justify what they're doing. Right? So the law is not an answer, of course. The law is part of a problem at this point. And so what or who is to say that violence is not good? At some point, radical violence is required to affirm, well, either law without justice or justice without law. Right? So the two poles, as a matter of fact, here, you see, tend to be, one and the same. The two opposites, in fact, are merely contradicting each other on the surface. So we have a law without justice, which is the will to power that imposes itself on everything that is outside of it. So the terrorists, the savages, the barbarians, right? Those who stand for a justice beyond the law. Everything that is beyond the law, which is now reduced to rules and regulations devoid of any inherent meaning, really, is dangerous. To be dangerous is bad because good is safe. So salvation is in safety within the structure, within the matrix, within the machine, within the technocratic regime, the dystopia that Aldous Huxley had delineated. What about the savage? At some point, the savage will come out of his cave and say, enough is enough. He's going to become a terrorist. He's not just going to stand there and let himself be used as a clown by the system. So we're going to have documentaries about this tribal person. Tribal mentality will come out and say, no, I'm not part of a multicultural circus. I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go in the streets and I'm going to burn your cities down. We see this also in Islam. I mean, you have Islamists or Muslims treated as pawns in a multicultural circus, and they stand out and they say, no, we don't admit that. We're not playing your game. So that is the modern setup. Now this brings us to the question of Christianity. In the Gospels, we have Rome representing law, Caesar. Right? Then we have the corrupt Jew. The corrupt Jew is the collaborationist, the hypocrite. And then, of course, we have the good Jew. And the good Jew is, paradigmatically, Jesus Christ. Now, we also have, on the side of, shall we say, preferred by the collaborationists, we have Barabbas. Barabbas is somewhat of an anti-Christ. In what respect? In the respect that Barabbas is the son of the Father. Son of the Father, Jesus, Barabbas, Jesus, the son of the Father. Jesus is the son of the Father. So, Barabbas is a revolutionary. No kidding. Jesus is as well. So we have, obviously, a great overlap. However, Barabbas is preferred by the collaborationists. Why? Because they see justice in a secular way. In other words, they dream of justice as something earthly. It's just a dream. They probably know that, and everybody knows that Barabbas will, or the revolutionary movements will be smothered, crushed by the law. So there's no fear about coming about of a communist revolution, shall we say? No such thing. Barabbas is preferred because what is feared the most is what Jesus represents. Right? The corrupt Jew fears the most what the good Jew represents. What does the good Jew represent? He represents the inherence of justice in law. A justice, however, here, that is irreducible to law. Now, what does that mean? It means that justice is divine, and that it is not just a word, but it is an action. It is an act, an actuality. Shall we say, it is a strength. It is a reality. It is alive. It is alive as a way. It is alive as truth. It is, in fact, as we are told in the Gospels, none other than the living Word, the Logos, that is at work, as it were, within the workings of the law. So we have justice as divine providence that provides for us under the shelter, as it were, of the law. If there is no worldly solution, then what is the law there for? What are we to do? Are we to accept the law, Caesar, and then perhaps in private cherish truth and justice and accept that the two are irreconcilable? This tends to be the modern Christian path. Right? You go to church and you recognize justice and truth. This is all very beautiful, all very romantic. And then you go back during the week to subservience to rules and regulations, which is law without justice. And you wait for the second coming, the end of time. You end passively as a collaborationist. So the modern Christian turns out to be the bad Jew. Right. What about the good Jew? If justice is otherworldly, the otherworldly is within the worldly, not simply sleeping, but at work. And to respond to the law in a good way, as a good Jew would do, is to orient, to open up the law to justice, to its fundamental motive, to what is at work divinely in law. That is the living word. So there is a return to, what is a living word? It's dialogue. There is a return to a dialogue, a secret dialogue, hidden at the heart of the law. You could say it is, in theological terms, it is the dialogue between the Father and the Son that is permanently at work in the workings of the law. As energeia is at work in work, in ergon. Right? In energeia is this Aristotle's energy that is a kind of hidden work within work, not properly work in the conventional sense of the word. Right. So we have this dialogue which is hidden. You say, why isn't it open as the law is? Because if it were open, it would convert into law necessarily, and that's not proper. It's not proper of truth, of justice, to be law. As soon as it converts into law, it is no longer purely truth and just. Why not? Because it is then fossilized. It is stuck, and it can be instrumentalized, therefore. But if it's moving, as it were, moving in hiding, moving timelessly in a kind of divine circle, then it cannot be grasped. What we grasp is something fixed. It is not the life of the law, the spirit of the law. So why do we need the law? Why don't we just break through this surface and enter into an age of pure justice and truth? Well, we've seen why. Because if you do try to establish the truth in this world, you end up with a law. It's something fixed in this world. It's the property of this world to fix all that is outward. All that is outward can be grasped, can be used. What is hidden cannot be, by definition almost. So we need the law. We need the law also because you say, well, why do we fix? Why do we? Because we need certainties in this world. Right? In the face of, in a fallen world, in the face of violence, barbarism, chaos. So we need certainties. And so we need the law. But now the question is, for the corrupt Jew, or for the modern Christian, the question is, well, what is law? Law becomes a mask to conceal truth and justice, which is projected, as it were, in the imagination. So we dream in our dreams. We dream of one day it'll come, right? We'll dream of this justice that will finally be established on earth. One day. In the meantime, we're collaborationists. That's the bad Jew. That's the modern Christian. So what do? If, as a modern Christian, you become a Barabba, then you'll become one of these revolutionaries, a communist who will be, ultimately a godless saint. You will become a Raskolnikov. You will become a vigilante. What does this mean? It means that you don't no longer have time for God. You pick up the rifle and you shoot. That's the way you establish justice. Justice is in the barrel of a gun. Truth is there too. You become a communist, essentially, which is an anti-Christian. Right. So, what do? If we are not to take justice in our hands against the limits of law, what can overcome those limits? Can they be overcome? What compensates for the dire shortcomings of law in this world? There's no absolute solution. There is no solution. In fact, in this world, in a secular context, so there is no secular solution. However, there is the possibility of opening up the problem to a transcendent solution, to its roots, and to recognize the problem of law, as a mirror of truth, not merely as a mask of injustice. So something that is really to be broken by the revolutionary, who will then free the spirit from its cage, from its straitjacket, legal straitjacket. So now, if the law is understood as a mirror of truth, then law is understood also as a defense of freedom, a freedom that is a function of truth, freedom that is spirit, really, and that is the life dedicated to truth. That would be freedom, the life dedicated to truth. We have Judas the Iscariot who betrays Jesus. He can't live with that betrayal. He hangs himself. He can't live with it. It's too much. Life without truth is hell. Right? So we have spirit that hides in the law. Naturally. The law is not, therefore, something that imprisons the spirit. Spirit, as it were, willfully, freely, spontaneously hides in law. There can be no law without spirit, without meaning, without truth, without the living word. Otherwise, it would be simply sheer violence. It would be a mere tyrannical machine, not a law. That's not what is called law. In a similar way, we have a Christian teaching of Christ being the second Adam, who is hidden in the first Adam. First Adam being under the law. Man is not a child of the earth. Spirit enters into the humus, into the clay, right, in Genesis, in biblical Genesis. And there is man. So we have The Logos, you could say, comes into the earthly. The Spirit comes into the earthly. The Word of God into the earthly. And there you have the earth shaped as a man. How are we to understand this? And how is this, in fact, crucial to our appreciation of Christianity? Spirit does not enter into merely formless matter that is out there. Right? God is not a demiurge who just shapes matter from without. Rather, the case is that of Spirit that enters into the semblance of the earthly, so into the passions, to expose them as originally lawful. What does this mean? It means that there is no such thing as the earthly on its own. That is the manner of speech. We posit this earthly. So we don't need to go and make up something to justify the earthly. Law is not ultimately a justification of the earthly. The Spirit is originally within the earthly. And that means that the earthly is originally informed, that all matter is informed. And that means that necessarily all matter has the character of a determination of spirit, which is really law. So that there is no, fundamentally, there is no separation between law and nature. In this sense, that there is no such thing as a nature outside of law. So there's no such thing as justice beyond law. So the savage, again, and the law, justice outside of law, and law outside of justice. Somehow, the physical, the passions, are constituted originally by Spirit. They're moved. Their first mover is truth, is the living word, is providence, divine providence. And this is what shapes laws as well. Laws that we speak of conventionally. So we are to recover. This is the calling. This is what it is to be a Christian. We are to recover, return to the spirit that is within the law. And then recognize the law not as a mask of iniquity, but as a mirror of its divine spirit. So for Christmas, let us all turn back and recognize that we are not fatefully condemned to abide in a cave of barbarism where man is either collaborating with rules and regulations devoid of truth and justice, or turning to become a vigilante, eventually a terrorist, and so at war, inevitably, madly at war against the regime of well, today we have technocracy. Beyond all of this, we have a kind of poetic answer to divine providence. That answer comes in the form of, well, good speech. The Gospels are a perfect example of